and welcome to Zambition, the channel on which we engage with leaders in Zambia on their highest aspiration for the country. We ask the question, what is your Zambition? Greetings and welcome to Zambition. My name is Martin Kalungubanda, your host on this channel. Our guest today is a very accomplished business leader. Her name is Ms Charity Chanda Lumpa. Ms Lumpa has served as managing director previously for a number of institutions that include the then Zambia National Tourism Board. She became the first managing director for EcoBank Zambia Limited. She also served at one time as Airtel Networks Zambia managing director. Ms. Lumpa also serves and chairs a number of boards. She is the immediate past chairperson for one of Zambia's largest banks, the Zambia National Commercial Bank. She is also chairperson for Breakfast Club Africa, a new space for leaders coming together on the continent to reflect on their leadership. Ms. Lumpa is a philanthropist. She has created the Charity Lumpa Foundation. Ms. Lumpa is also an elder in her church, the United Church of Zambia. Ms. Lumpa, welcome to Zambition.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good evening, fellow Zambians.
My first question is around an object that could give us, when you describe it, a glimpse of your personal journey and who you are. What might that be?
A book. This is the object that reflects my personal journey. It has a beginning, definitely, but also an end. And that end may come in several editions later. And why do I say that? Because in life, we go through so many different stages of our lives, isn't it? We go through certain stages of development. We go through many challenges. But we also have some beautiful moments that we want to share with others, moments that we know will strengthen others as they strengthen in you. We also come to share little surprising things that people can learn from you as well. So this is why I picked the book. And so the book for me just reflects my personal journey from beginning to the end. And the end is not yet written, but it can come, as I said, several editions later. That's my book. That's me.
And what are some of those moments on your journey that have shaped the charity we are now in dialogue with?
Yeah, so firstly, the beginning, okay? In the beginning, it's a very painful beginning because this book will tell you about my early years up to 11 years old and thereafter how my life changed. My mom died when I was 11. And with her death, so also my father incarcerated for a bit. It changed my life because suddenly from being this middle income, well-to-do family, my relatives, my grandmother took over and looked after us. And more importantly, we are 6 of us, and those 6 were split in 6 different homes. So getting your life disrupted like that and then having to rebuild it again, it comes in several chapters of this book as well. So ultimately, you will read this book and say, wow, who would ever guess this is how she started, okay? And also the fact that such difficult times should not define you. They should strengthen you. They are stepping stone. You should use that not to look back, but to shape your future. Because where you're coming from must always reflect in what you want your future to be or not to be. So this is why I think a book really reflects my personal journey. Then the next chapter is my life without a mother,
Yeah.
my life without a father. And can you imagine as a teenager not having your mother, who's supposed to be your best friend or somebody you quarrel with now and again, but you do so out of love?
Yeah.
Never ever having had somebody I could confide in and what that feels like. Always having to feel like you have to prove yourself because the world is so cruel. When my mother died, everybody started calling us nicknames, and they were not very, very favorable nicknames. They were not nice nicknames. I was suddenly called the child of a murderer. Yeah, and some people didn't call me. She must be a murderer too. So you find all these painful things in their book as well. You would never know if you didn't read the book. But ultimately, and most importantly, is how I overcame. And I know today there are many children like me,
Yeah.
as I was as a child,
Mhm.
who think it's the end of the world. But here I am, Zanago board chairperson, with that very humble beginning. That shows you that it can be overcome. It has been done. It will continue being done. If only we stand on faith, we stand on our convictions, and we have a goal. And in this book, you will see how I've done it.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your directness, but also for sharing from deep down your heart. Allow me to just, while on the book as the object that best explains who you are, to simply go to the other chapter within the book that talks about, I'm imagining, how you shifted from those years of pain to the person, as you have said, who can end up being the chair of the board of maybe the largest bank in Zambia, but also a well-known and celebrated business leader, not only at home, but on the continent of Africa. What allowed you to transition from that pain to the productive, helpful, philanthropic person I am talking to now?
Yeah, so one of the things that I experienced with the death of my mom was poverty. When we started staying in my grandmother's house, my grandmother's house was half built, wasn't finished, wasn't completed. We moved from a luxury home, a farmhouse for that matter, into this home, which was incomplete. It had no power, no electricity, basically. It had no running water. It had no what shall I call it, plaster on the wall. There was no paint, there was no ceiling board. It was just really a house under construction.
Yeah.
But because we had nowhere else to live. So I went and lived there with my granny. And so I transitioned from this middle income child with servants at her beck and call, drivers to take her to school, cooks cooking my breakfast and stuff like that, to now kuyamkula ipika na malasha, pambaula, brazier with charcoal, using your hands, things that were really unknown to me, okay, at that age. Not having running water, having to cook on a brazier, having to boil your water on a brazier, and if you're late, having to bath cold water, and sharing your house with rats and cockroaches because their house was incomplete. And so a decision was made for me, and I had the taste of both lives, and decided which life I didn't want and the one I was going to pursue. So I decided the life I was in now, living with my grandmother, and God bless her soul, she gave me the best that she could. I decided this is not my life. I will never again live under conditions of poverty. It's a personal goal. I mean nobody any offense. It is my personal goal. Having tasted the kind of life that our parents gave us. That is one. Then I saw that my mother's life, my parents' life, was the life I was aspiring to. And so I decided to emulate my mother. My mother was very hardworking, and she was the first executive director of the Family Planning Association in the 70s, first female executive director. And I said, that's my role model. I'm going to be just like that. What did it take? And my granny told me, you have to be educated. You have to be strong in your faith. You have to have goals. You have to have a dream, and you must make sure you pursue it. And when you pursue it, she said, pursue it in excellence and causing no harm to anybody. And so that flipped the script for me. I can say another chapter was written, and I was carted off to Fatima Girls Secondary School, where for 5 years I evolved from this child who's being called names, who's a murderer from Form 1. Everybody's saying, oh, child of a murderer, this girl is a murderer, just like her dad, da 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 da. And then I evolved into my first injustice that I encountered at a personal level. Because now you are so not sure at 11, what am I saying the right thing? Are people acknowledging who I am, or are they acknowledging what my circumstances? So am I being now defined by my circumstances and not as an individual? Yeah. So what happens then? I was accused of having written a very nasty note to one of our prefects, a note I never wrote. Okay, but a so-called expert, a nun for that matter, said it was my handwriting. And as God is my witness, I never wrote that. But I realized this is the world we live in today. You can be innocent, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, society will judge you. And they may be wrong, as in that instance, or they may be right. And so I decided I will never put another person in that position as well. And I must give room for people to be heard, to explain themselves, and then you can come to some conclusions. But I was written off as guilty, and I endured many more months of injustice because of that. Okay, so I was even nicknamed the author, okay, in a very derogative manner. And that just now ruined my second year at Fatima Girls. So my first year, I was nicknamed the murderer or murderer's child. The second year, I was the author. In the third year, I decided enough is enough. I'm going to be who I am, the child that God created me to be. And I decided to focus on my studies. I passed my Form 5 with flying colors, went to university, and I started yet another journey on who I was going to be as Charity Lumpa.
Thank you so much. I hear tragedy as a child facing the loss of parental care. But I also hear the joy of our extended family system when grandmother moved in. Regardless of her limited means, she gave what she could, as you have said. Then the power of education.
Yes.
The fourth element I heard was your decision to choose which life you wanted to not only aspire for, but work towards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. We will take a little break. And when we come back, I will ask our guest what her Zambition is, her highest aspiration for the country.
Hub Lusaka, a member of the Global Impact Hub Network, is transforming the way we learn and solve personal, organizational, and societal challenges. We do this in 3 key ways. We bring together entrepreneurs and the resources needed to activate and actualize intentions. Our process for learning enables entrepreneurs and organizations to activate their capacity for creativity and innovation. But most importantly, our physical space brings together emerging and aspiring entrepreneurs to learn together and share lessons on how to activate and transform their dreams into reality. As our name suggests, Impact Hub Lusaka helping organizations and individuals to create impact.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Ms Charity Lumpa, a business leader and philanthropist. Ms. Lumpa, what is your Zambition? What is your highest aspiration for the country?
My highest aspiration for our country, Zambia, is twofold, or maybe even three. Firstly, I would like to see a Zambia where we celebrate each other's successes without suspicion, where we drive that, I don't know how to call it, that ethos that it is okay to succeed and do well without having stolen, without having done something corrupt, because you worked hard for it. And people must just celebrate you and look up to you as an influencer without you having to be a politician or a CEO or anybody, but because you've, out of your sweat, you've achieved something. I like a Zambia that is open-hearted like that and celebrating, because then our children, our children's children will grow up in a society where it's okay to be competitive and win and succeed and people celebrate you. That is one. I also want to, my highest ambition for Zambia is to be back to be a garden. You know, like Lusaka City used to be the garden city. We're a Zambia like that, where the environment is as important as our copper mines. Okay, where we take care of the environment, our water sources, our waste management, where it's nice and clean, where we don't even need to start praying for cholera as a spirit to go away. No, we need to be clean Zambia, a hygienic place, a Zambia we'll all be very proud of, where we'll be ashamed to even throw a piece of paper on the road without just carrying it home and throwing it at home, where we'll be ashamed to throw things in drainages, where even the systems work in such a manner that the environment is clean, the air is fresh, and at the end of the day, everybody's benefiting from that. And then my second and highest aspiration for Zambia is that our GDP must be so high, back to the 60s when we were first independent, where poverty is no longer an issue, something that drives politics, but rather something that happens because nobody paid attention to it. We don't want it to be a way of life. We want everybody to be more or less between a low income and a high mid income, mid to high income, so that ultimately everybody will have food on the table, a roof over their head, clothes on their back, children in school, where child marriages, will be taboo, where at the end of the day, everybody, and I'm sorry if there are other people in the audience that don't believe in God, but where everybody has a higher calling, somebody they are held accountable to. For me, it's God. And I believe in God. So where everybody is held to account out of a personal desire to do the right thing in terms of humanity.
Fantastic. I just heard 4 brilliant aspirations for our country. You have talked about the need to celebrate one another as Zambians, a garden city of a country, because we care about our environment, that we keep it clean. But you have also talked about the need to overcome poverty by making sure that our economy is operating at the highest capacity possible. And finally, you wrapped it up with talking about your faith, your belief in God, and that guides the way you do things. In order for that Zambition, those aspirations to be realized, what needs to die and what needs to be born in you and the country?
I'll start with the country. What needs to die is pettiness. irresponsible suspicions, falsehoods, trying to curry favor by lying or just creating a story. That needs to die. What needs to be born is civility and humanity. Civility, because we need to show human kindness, not just humaneness, human kindness. We must understand that in this world, diversity builds us. For as long as we are the same, there's nothing there that will challenge us. But diversity builds us because we are challenged. And if we listen to one another and become like a three-chorded string, can you imagine how powerful we would be? And diversity means that there is consensus. Consensus doesn't mean I agree with you. It means I may not agree with you, but I can live with that. Because what are we looking at? We are looking at what's in the best interest of this country. That needs to be born. And humanity is because we need to value life. God created us in a way that we should go out multiply, and He gave us dominion over animals, not over one another. So we need to respect life. We need to respect each other, no matter how high office or how low an office. And I love especially that I'm an African, a Zambian in Zambia, because we have strong, rich cultural norms that if we even paid attention to them 80% of the time, we'll have the most awesome country that is so well endowed with culture. But at the end of the day, that is civil and humane to one another, irrespective of race, background, political affiliations, or religion. As regards me, what needs to be born or die or be born in me? I think what needs to die is that second thinking, like, maybe not. I should just go for it. I do go for it a lot more than I do, maybe not. And I don't know whether that's good or bad, but at the end of the day, I should just continue. Don't second guess. Because I always believe in what if I succeed, never in what if it doesn't work. So I should just let it ride, let it go. And that should die in me. And what should be born, I think, has already been birthed. I should now just nurture it to come out more. It's just keep going for that dream, keep going for that goal. No matter my insecurities, no matter my challenges, no matter I succeed or not, because the chances of me succeeding are much greater than me failing. And even if I fail, I'll have learned something. And that speaks to the point where I say I do not fail. Either I learn or I succeed. So at the end of the day, I think that spirit I have must continue growing, not so much that it's born, but must continue growing, and just avoid labels, avoid second guessing myself, and continue believing that I am what I am because I see myself through God's eyes, and the way He made me is the way I see me. Wonderfully and fearfully made and able to achieve more than I can ever imagine because I've got a higher calling, a higher accountability, and that's God.
To my question on what needs to die and what needs to be born in order for your Zambition to come through or become a reality, you responded, what needs to die includes pettiness, suspicion, and falsehood. Among the answers you gave for what needs to be born were civility, what you termed human kindness, and respect for one another and life. Ms. Lumpa, as much as we want to avoid pettiness, we must ask ourselves the question, what and where is the place of accountability?
Because we are humane, because we are civil, doesn't mean there's no accountability. Okay, like I said, we must have somebody we hold as our higher office to be accountable for. And so that's why there are rules and regulations. That's why there are laws. And part of civility is also obeying those laws. Also being a good citizen, a good person at an individual level. wanting to obey, and that civic responsibility, that civic duty to do good for each other, and to know that when I cross the line, I'll be held accountable. So the laws, the courts of law also should be such that they are structured in a manner to allow for that accountability to happen at each and every level, starting with our policemen. I think ultimately we must have the higher calling where we are held accountable. And so if it means it's a court of law, let that be a court of law. If it's at home, we are accountable to our parents, to ourselves, to our God. Because ultimately we have to be able to be civil and loving to one another. And then when I say loving, I really mean agape love. Because the Bible does tell us, love thy neighbor, okay? So at the end of the day, love thy neighbor means just that. It includes accountability. Where you do wrong, you go and put up your hand and say, I'm sorry, I did wrong. But it's important that there's always accountability, even as low as our children. You know, from when we are raising our children, we should teach them accountability. And one of the things I also would like to say is that even in schools, as early as possible, we start teaching them civility and humanity as early as possible, and throughout the school curriculum, right through to university, because that is the society that Zambia needs. That's the type of Zambian we need to see.
Could you unpack civility for me, please?
Okay, civility for me is about being nice to one another. I may not agree with you, but even if I have to disagree with you, let me do it in a manner that allows you respect, that sees that gives you your face, that allows you to feel you've been heard and at the same time valued, even if I don't agree with you. For me, that's civility. It doesn't mean that at each and every point when I'm not happy with you, I must get up and castigate you. And no, I'm able to do that. But if I'm able to do that, I should do it in a manner that as you walk away, you give time to reflect on what I said, because I did it in a manner that respected you.
Thank you. And you also talked about we need to have dominion over animals, not human beings. What about those who say, actually, the natural world was gifted to us by God, and we are supposed to relate to it with reverence rather than dominion?
Yes. So dominion, in my understanding, is that the animal world will not rule the human world. Okay, so that's what I mean about dominion. Remember that one of the first things I said about the garden city is taking care of the environment. So we need to nurture it. We need to love the environment. It gives us so much. We should learn to give it back and to take care of it. So for me, that's very important. So when it comes to dominion, I meant it in the aspect of civility, in the aspect of my Zambition for the highest ambition I have for Zambia, because we are too distracted by non-issues. So we need to be able to say that, look, let's be one people. And if I had the chance, I would even rewrite the Zambia national anthem to bring it to today's modern world and see in it things that we can speak over our country that should come to pass. Yes.
My final question is around advice. What is, among many, the most valuable piece of advice you have ever received?
And it's one of the most simplest advice ever received, but we hardly ever pay attention to it. In the workplace, I've received great advice, a lot of advice. But the one that stands out for me is that consumerism will always be there for us, whereas the opportunity and time to make wise investments is a very limited window. So I sat and I thought, where is this coming from? So let me give you the context. So those years in our early 20s, we're young, all we thought about is, my God, which car am I going to buy? What am I going to do with my money? Latest shoes, clothes, that age, you remember that age? It's a nasty time because, before too long, you're in your 40s and you've done absolutely nothing. So anyway, one of my brother's friend had the beautiful Mercedes-Benz that I ever saw that he had just acquired. And it was his pride and joy. And we were all like green with envy. And he said, when I grow up, I want to be just like him, driving that kind of car. And so a few months later, one day I met him and I said, oh, how's your beautiful car? He says, I sold it. I said, what? How do you sell such a beautiful thing? I mean, are you crazy? He says, I bought something more valuable. I said, what can be more valuable than that? He says, I bought a house. I said, wow. He says, yes, I bought a house. Charity, these things, as we consume them, they come and go. It's very difficult for me to drive such a car and I don't have a house of my own, a house I can call my own. So take it from me. Whenever you have opportunity, buy a house. I said, wow. I found that to be mind-blowing because at that age, I was in my mid-20s. I was nowhere near thinking of being a property owner. As I speak today, I have 3 properties.
Congratulations.
So I felt that was the best advice ever. I retired in 2015. I live off my properties. Best advice.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. I hope young people out there are listening. Consumerism will always be there. Time to invest will run out at a certain point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I really thank God for that piece of advice because I made a lot of sacrifices, which are now called investments, to be able to be where I am today without having to worry about where my next meal is coming from.
Thank you very much. I could spend the whole day listening to your lessons of life, learnings, but also your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Martin, and I wish you all the best. Like I said, what you're doing is really putting the Zambition on a firm footing for each and every Zambian that has a great love and desire for this country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All the best.
Having listened to the dialogue and followed my conversation with our guest, I now invite you to look at the drawing that emerged out of that dialogue. Take time to see the contours, the colors, the images that are reflected on the painting, on the drawing. And pay attention to what the drawing evokes in you. What are the feelings? What are the thoughts that are ignited by you looking at the painting? What thoughts does the painting generate in you with regard to your own leadership? What thoughts, feelings, and images does this painting evoke in you with regard to the future of our country? What else does this painting make you think and feel? Kindly share your reflections on this channel so that we can continue the dialogue on the future of the country we all love, on the future of our nation. Thank you.